live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Blake. I'm excited for this weekend because we've got some really underrated games. But I hate to be this guy. I really hate to be this guy.
Don't do it.
No. Have you looked at week 5? Have you? I'm getting way ahead of myself, and I keep doing this because I'm such a dork. But have you looked at week 5?
I don't think that I have. Why?
Because we have LSU, Ole Miss, we have Alabama, Georgia, and then we also have
the
SEC
October
slate.
27th. This is week 4. Okay, yes, I've seen. It is.
Auburn, Texas A&M's on there. Georgia, Penn State is on there. Like what?
No, I mean Georgia, Penn State. You mean
Ohio
State,
Oregon. Penn State, Oregon is what I meant to say.
Yeah, we got some massive games. I mean, look, we've only had two real massive games for the Big Ten so far. Right? I mean, like we kind of need to start seeing what the Big Ten is all about here. We'll start getting some of those. I mean, Oregon and Ohio State really is the only team that you look at and say, okay, that's what they got. Now, Indiana plays Illinois this week, but yes, I have seen that week 5 slate is going to be absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one, but it doesn't mean that we should completely overlook this week because we get a chance.
We did it for week 2. Remember week 2?
Yeah.
And then everybody's like, oh, my God. What's going on? Clemson almost getting upset. And then they get beat by Georgia Tech. Florida gets upset. And then DJ Lagway throws 5 picks. I mean, there's just so many different things that are happening here, Joe. You can't sleep any week. What I did do today is I don't think a lot of people have gotten their eyes on the Big 12. I did a Big 12 deep dive today. A lot of Texas Tech and Utah football will be talked about on this show here today.
I'm very excited for this, and I'm really glad that like the first major battle between two Big 12 teams, it's between the two most talented teams. I'm really hoping that this doesn't derail the season for either of them, which I don't think it's going to happen. But there's a real shot this ends up being a rematch situation where we get to see Utah and Texas Tech square off with one another at the end of the year. Both these teams are so freaking good, and I think that we're going to get an awesome fist fight on Saturday.
Two different styles of teams clash for what may be part 1 of this matchup as they may face off against one another again in a couple of weeks or at the end of the year. I shouldn't say a couple of weeks, but at the end of the year for the Big 12 championship game. So we'll talk about Texas Tech and Utah tonight. Miami and Florida will face off. Joe, is Billy Napier getting fired this week?
Do you think that it's going to happen? Is that what the scuttlebutt is?
If he's 1-3, what do you do? Joe, this is a must-win for Billy Napier. And everybody said LSU was the must-win. I said last week on AYS, I thought this was the must-win. Because you lose to LSU, that's one thing. You lose to an in-state rival and you get slaughtered, that's a completely other thing. Joe, you might be the 4th best team in the state of Florida.
Here's the only thing, though, that I would counter with that. They had a rough start to last year, and they had a more embarrassing start. I know. Whoa, wait, hold on. They got smoked at home against Miami to start the season. So I would argue it was on the same.
Yeah, but they didn't lose to South Florida.
South Florida's a good team, though. South Florida's a better team than we thought that they were going to be.
Florida can't be the number 4 team in the state. I'm sorry.
I understand
he better win this game.
Wait. I understand that. I'm not saying that he lasts the season, but it seems like that there's this weird apprehension to rushing into the decision. Like what do they really get? And I'm usually on the side of saying that we should have, if you're ready to fire a coach, you should fire him sooner rather than later so you get more time to start looking around. But the counter to that then now in this circumstance, Blake, is that what do you get out of getting rid of him at this current moment? You've lasted this long.
You turn a page. Schedule. You turn a page and you write off. But here's the thing. When you rip off that Band-Aid, a lot of kids are going to hit the portal and your season's done. Clearly. So do you want to do that? I mean, why not turn the page? Is it conducive for them to not turn the page? Why not rip the Band-Aid off now and get your search underway?
That's fair. And I understand that that's a lot of teams' logics that they have. I just think that the amount of times that they've put this off and they've given him more chances, it seems like it would be really abrupt for them to just say, "Oh, you know what? You lost to Miami." What if they lose a close game to Miami? Do you think that buys them a little bit of time?
You can't. You just can't go be 1-3. I'm sorry. I can't. You can't. I can't get there. No, because again, you're the fourth best team in the state of Florida. Right? Like losing to LSU is one thing. Losing, okay. I mean, Joe, I don't know. I don't know. If anything tells us in college football, don't use transitive property. Say, well, South Florida beat them, so Miami's going to smoke them. Like, I don't want to do that. But there also just comes a time, Joe, where I'm like, I mean, man, what are you playing for then? Like, what are you doing? What are you trying to accomplish? I mean, he'll be 20-22 in 4 seasons. You fired Dan Mullen for far less. Recruiting will not get better. Joe, I'm telling you right now, there are teams circling their recruiting class. I know for a fact that there are people circling their recruiting class right now. Sharks are in the water.
But are they going to – anybody that ends up leaving – they're going to leave. Anyone that was going to potentially leave was going to leave. Anyone that was going to transfer, anyone that was going to exit their recruiting class. Their recruiting class at the current moment is also not super sexy, except for if they end up losing Elijah Haven, which would be very brutal if they did.
I don't think that that's going to happen.
Okay,
I know that LSU got Pop Houston today, or Peyton Houston. I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, unless they hire somebody of high quality, Lane Kiffin, then we'll see. I'm throwing it out there. We'll see. You know who 2 coaches who got themselves off the hot seat pretty quickly?
Who's that?
Brent Venables and Hugh Freeze. They're both 3-0 going into a game this week. We'll talk about that as well going into this one. But, Joe, let's start off today as we were just talking about some coaching changes. Deshaun Foster has been fired at UCLA. We talked about so many different things in so many games yesterday. We didn't really have time to get to this, but Deshaun Foster has been fired at UCLA, and this Nico thing has got to be tied to it. So, your thoughts on Nico Iamaleava and his coach being fired?
Well, first of all, I want to say this. I think a lot of people are kind of piling on Deshaun Foster. I just want to say that this was a really hard situation for him to take over. This was a really complicated uphill battle that he had getting the team late after Chip Kelly leaves in the really awkward timeline that he had when he took the Ohio State OC job. He was hired way too soon. This is somebody who could become a head coach in the future, but he just wasn't ready. Being a position coach hired to run a team is an impossible task. You need years of experience around top programs to earn an opportunity like the UCLA head coaching job, which is why I'm saying he could find success in 10 years from now. We see this happen all the time in the sport. I feel bad for him because I think he got hung out to dry. That being said,
and they didn't give him NIL money.
Right. That being said, my attention and our attention obviously goes right to Nico.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is going to be the last time that we really talk about him this season because this is the last main domino that had to have fallen with this program and with the Nico situation.
Unless
they're awful.
Portal.
Right. We'll talk about it at the end of the season when that does happen. This team's awful. It's bad. I said this is the worst Power 4 roster out there at the current moment. It is worse than potentially Oklahoma State and others that have already looked pretty incompetent.
Yeah.
This team stinks. They can't beat G5 teams that they're squaring off with, Blake. They're awful, poorly coached. And now Foster's gone. This team has nothing to play for. Nico and his father, more specifically his impulsive, overbearing father, forced this situation because they wanted more money that they hadn't earned and then tried to make it seem like they were trying to set him up to get to the NFL better. That is clearly could not have been proven more incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
We all knew. We all weren't dumb enough, Blake, to think, oh, he wasn't doing this for the money. But I can't believe they thought that we were dumb enough that they were going to say that out loud and they were going to claim that that's what the reasoning was.
I got to be real with you. In the beginning, when this started happening, I did think that there was a team out there that was going to offer this kid a lot more money than Tennessee because it didn't make sense in the beginning, right? Like, I'll admit where I'm wrong. I was like, listen, you're probably getting paid 1.5 to 2, now to 2.5 million a year with TV revenue money coming in, right? And so with that being said, I just never genuinely bought in the beginning of this that I'm like, all right, he's going somewhere in the Big Ten, right? Like this, I originally thought he was going to another LA school. I legitimately thought that Lincoln Riley had pulled one on us and he was going to USC. And I'm like, oh, dude, when this kid and I think we talked about this. I'm like, when this kid goes to UCLA, I mean, to USC, all hell's going to break loose, right? Because they have money. And Joe, to be frank with you, I mean, I don't know if I think that this recruiting class that they have right now might stick to some regard. Depending on what I'm hearing, the money of what they're giving kids. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But then when he went to UCLA, and then the verbiage around it was, Tennessee didn't put the athletes around us to make us better. Did you see Tennessee versus Georgia? Right? Like that. Remember, that was the talking point that they had.
Well, and the offensive line as well. And they did a tremendous job of protecting Joey Aguilar against Georgia.
Hey, guess what? Lance Hurd, a 5-star, has to have a year to take reps and become better. Who would have ever thought that a 5-star needed a year to get better? But, oh, by the way, Nico, you had to do the same thing. So let's not act like that's something impulsive. I will give Nico this. I think he was led in a wrong way. And he is the public face of this, where his dad and his so-called agent that's not an agent deserve the blame for this. And I think that's where the blame should go. So it makes it such a horrible situation for Nico that he's in a situation that could derail his career because, Joe, the truth is he is very talented. He does a lot of talented traits. In reference to Deshaun Foster, I think you hit the nail on the head. He wasn't put in the right position to succeed here. Chip Kelly screwed over UCLA as UCLA screwed over Chip Kelly when it came to NIL, recruiting money, TV revenue coming. And they're not ready for this. I do think that to take a job like that, you have to have somebody, and we kind of talked about this a little bit when we did talk about this when he got hired. He's not the guy that you need for that place. Lincoln Riley has shown that you have to have a relentless guy in recruiting in that general area and in the state of California. You're 45 minutes away from campus is your stadium. Like it's not conducive to what you need and to build that. I don't know if they really care. And so for that, I don't know what UCLA was truly expecting. You're not giving him the revenue money. You had to have a head coach, and you just said, hey, we're going to hire ex-alumni and kind of bide our time here. UCLA is a proud program, but Joe, I mean, they're not going to give the same amount of revenue that USC is giving to their football program. They're giving a lot of their revenue to basketball, and I get it, rightfully so. So it's going to be interesting where they go. But Deshaun Foster was the fall guy in all of this, and I hate to say that, but he is.
Right, and that's kind of like the really awful casualty that comes with this because Nico brought unnecessary negative attention to this program, and it felt like everybody was piling on as they were really struggling at the beginning of the year. I wonder how bad they would have been. Although, never mind, I retract that statement because they would have had Joey Aguilar as their quarterback if Nico had never come there. I wonder what this team would have looked like differently if Joey Aguilar was the man playing quarterback for this team. But Blake, here's one thing that's now quite tricky. I don't think that he should enter the transfer portal.
Who?
Unless Nico. The problem why he ended up at UCLA, and this is a little bit of speculation, a little bit what you kind of hear. The part of the reason why he doesn't go anywhere is because nobody wanted to deal with his dad. No coach wants to deal with that distraction. Look at the distraction that it caused for Tennessee last year. It held them back. No coach in the country, unless they're absolutely desperate, wants to deal with Nico's dad and his management team or the fake agent that you referenced. That was why I went to UCLA, because they were desperate. They needed a 5-star. They wanted a hometown kid. Deshaun Foster needed something to rally his team, and it didn't work. If he goes in the transfer portal after the ass start that he's had to this year, he's been awful. He's been really bad. He's taken a step backward. What program's going to take him? Who's going to take him? Be a G5 program.
Well, let me tell you what I would do if I'm Nico. I would hire a legitimate brand, like a legitimate agent, not his dad, not anybody, and say, listen.
Good luck convincing his dad to do this.
I mean, I don't mean this I don't mean this in a wrong way, but with all due respect, Nico doesn't need his dad. And at some point, you got to pop the titty out of your mouth and be a man. Okay? So I hate to say it like that, but his dad doesn't control his life. And if he does, then you have to have the balls to tell your dad to go screw himself. This is my career. And I get it. It's family. I understand all of that. But Joe, I've had issues with my dad. I've had issues with my mom. Everybody has. Hey, man, you don't get to tell. I am a grown-ass man. You do not get to tell me what to do here. And as a parent, it is your job to say, listen, what do I have to do to help you? The only route that I truly think that he has is to hire like Trace Armstrong, hire somebody that is really locked in and can call one of his coaches and say, listen, he's not going to be represented by his dad. He's going to be represented by me. And you have my word on this, that he's trying to separate the image of, listen, this is not my dad. The problem that I'm having right now is that he's getting all the blame when I don't think that he deserves it.
No, it's not. It is his.
But he is getting all the blame.
It's his dumbass dad. I mean, it's his dad. His dad's a moron. His dad has completely ruined his career up until this point, and it is going to put a giant target on his back if he tries to transfer. And I said this before when the decision happened. It is going to impact his ability to play in the NFL. It is. We have seen this plenty of times where NFL teams, guys will randomly slip and fall in the draft. If people wonder, like, why did that happen? It's because teams don't want to deal with the people
like
that are
Sanders?
Well, no, I think that's very, very different. I think it's very, very different because
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers is a good example because he was
Johnny Manziel.
Right. They don't want to deal with a player that might have people around him that are going to cause problems. I don't think that it would be as easy to happen, but imagine if Nico's dad tried to storm in and do what he did to Tennessee to an NFL team. No NFL team is going to want to deal with that. So I agree with that part. It's not Nico's fault. But my problem with the plan you laid out is perfect. I 100% agree. Go get Trace Armstrong. Go get one of those big name guys. The problem is kind of wishful thinking. One, that his dad's going to back off. And two, that Nico's suddenly going to mature and grow up overnight and realize I have to tell my dad to stop and I need to separate myself from him. He wouldn't have gone to UCLA, and his brother wouldn't have come to UCLA as well if he had that much control over his life. I bet they both transfer to another school and they go to like Sac State or some shit, and this is going to just slowly disappear.
Maybe. But Deshaun Foster was put in a bad situation, and it's going to be interesting to see where UCLA goes from here. All right, everybody, do us a favor. Hit the like and share to all those groups. If you're on Facebook, it's all those social media pages. If you're watching us on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell, and wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Every episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. You have some discretionary income, go over to FanDuel, place a couple of bets. Joe and I give you some picks. Maybe you don't want to listen to us. We pick some really tough games to do this, but not the games that Joe and I would pick. Regardless of that, let's go all have fun. Sign up today with our good friends over at FanDuel. If you have an issue, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Go to FanDuel.com/RG for more. And Joe, we got to talk about our good friends over at GameTime as well.
Yes, of course. I have told you folks multiple times about this. It is so hard trying to find tickets easily, and the right tickets. Every single year, my dad and I would try to go to a Notre Dame game, and it is a battle. Was going on every single different platform, and it took until this year where I dug into GameTime, and they made it so simple and easy. The fees were included. You knew the total up front. I didn't have to put everything in the cart and then go check and then text my dad and let him know that the price that I told him was completely wrong. There also was such an easier time of seeing what the views were going to be like. There's no obstructions when you're actually being able to take a look at how the field is going to look for you. Everything is done at such a better level and a more of an attention to detail, which is why you need to go and download the GameTime app and use our code Ruffino, Ruffino, for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the GameTime app and use code Ruffino for $20 off that first purchase.
Yes, GameTime is the place to be for any real ticket if you're going to search for those games. All right, Joe, let's move on here. Our good friends over at FanDuel have the Miami and Florida game and a little bit of a spread that maybe I wasn't anticipating. But regardless, Miami versus Florida this weekend as Florida is coming off 2 straight losses. Miami coming off of a couple of 3 dominating performances. When you look at Miami versus Florida, game day will also be there. Your thoughts as we preview this game?
Well, the first thing that we've talked about a lot with this Miami program, Blake, is that they're doing everything right. They're doing everything right. There is a new attention to detail, and they look like the most balanced team in college football. Carson Beck is getting a lot more love nationally because he's playing more freely. He's playing in the right situation. He doesn't have to do everything. They've got a dominant physical run game with a great offensive line, a overwhelming defensive line. And Blake, they're stepping into a matchup against the Florida team that is past desperate. Last week, we talked about how Florida really needed to show something, that they needed, with their backs up against the wall with nothing to do but to swing to get their way out of it. They had to beat LSU, and they lost. They imploded. DJ Lagway, 5 interceptions. Blake, the main theme for me with this game, man, is Florida going to put up a fight? Is Florida going to bounce back into some sort of a way that they can shock the college football world? And I don't think that they can, because they showed me last week they didn't have it in them.
Well, and to bring on to that, my question is how does DJ Lagway respond? Yeah. You threw 5 interceptions last week. I mean, Joe, I don't even know how to really characterize the performance, really. I mean, I think it's worse than the 5 interceptions, if I'm being honest. But I think a couple of things. One, LSU showed him a lot of things and gave him other things post-snap that he was just in a blender. And then he was just seeing ghosts after that. How do they respond? Last year, it's interesting. The LSU game was the game that, they came out before and said, listen, we're keeping Billy Napier till 2025. They came out and beat LSU. They beat Ole Miss. They wind up rallying off 5 straight wins and then started the season 1-0. 6 straight wins for this Florida program. And then they lose to South Florida, who Miami just absolutely throttled. Now, I think the game was a little bit closer than people want to indicate in the final score. And then, Joe, to be honest with you, offensively, they got dominated. There was absolutely nothing that they could do. LSU dominated every single aspect of that game. And I think that you bring up the interesting question of not what Florida will do going into this game from an X's and O's standpoint. What are you going to do from a morale standpoint? Are you going to mail it in? And I do think that that's a massive question. But I do, and you're going to hate me for saying this, when I look at the game, I do think that this might be the best defensive line, just defensive line, not best defense, but from a talent standpoint, the best defensive line that Miami has seen. I think Caleb Banks coming into the season and this being his first game last week, Joe, he was phenomenal.
But he's hurt.
He was, but that's what I'm saying. He came back and I was wondering, is he still hurt? Is he going to be conditioned? Brother, he dominated.
Caleb, but it's I don't mean to cut you off, but it sounds like he's not going to be. From what I was reading, it doesn't sound like he's going to be in this game. He re-injured the foot, and they're worried that he's not coming back.
Okay, well then that's a bigger. Okay, well I did not know that. then that's
Okay.
a problem because that kid.
I'm going to double check. Right now.
Double check really quickly. But if that, okay, to sidebar that, then Joe, I'm not buying that. He was out there on the last play of the game and he was not hurt. So I'm not buying it. Go ahead, say it.
This is an article posted 3 minutes ago from Billy Napier. Caleb re-injured his foot. Obviously, we'll have an injury report for you on Wednesday, but in general, it's great for him to be back out there. We'll report injuries on Wednesday night. So there's no clarity, but it sounds like the injury that he had going into the LSU game that he thought they were healed from, he re-aggravated it. So he might play, but he's still messed up at the current moment.
Even if he's hurt, he dominated. But regardless of that,
yes, sorry.
No, I'm glad you said something because I didn't see that. I didn't know. All right. That D-line's still really good for Florida with or without him. Mm-hmm. And the defense is not a problem for them. I think their secondary is pretty good too, for what it's worth. Joe, I just think Miami's going to be able to lean on them on both lines of scrimmage, though. The physical style of play that Miami has, the way that they're dominating people up front, offense, defense. We talked about this last night. I think Ruben Bain might be the best defensive player in the country right now, the way that he's playing. Carson Beck, the interceptions need to have context to them for what it's worth from last week. I said that I think he would be my Heisman frontrunner right now if I had one. I just think Miami's on a different warpath right now. And it would take every ounce and muster from this Florida team to go into there and win this game. Because I think that the speed, the quarterback play, the running game, the way they defend the run, the way their secondary's been playing, Joe, I don't know if there's an area that Miami's just not flat out better than.
I think that's absolutely true. And I think that as talented as Florida's roster is, it's playing with a lot of deficiencies and issues. And I think a number of those issues are going to really cost them in this game. There's two areas where Miami is incredibly dominant going into this game that I think gives them not only an edge, but like a serious edge. They are 14th in the country in havoc rate allowed. I know we're 3 games into the season, so the context of these stats are not as robust as they typically would be if we're talking about it more midway into the year. But their offensive line has been tremendous. The stats show that they do not give up a lot of tackles for loss or sacks to opposing defensive lines. And that is with the first game that they played against Notre Dame, which is a pretty good unit. As you just said there, and Mario Cristobal talked about it today, that this is a roster loaded with NFL talent, and this is going to be the hardest challenge that they're going to see, especially on their D-line. Tyreek Sapp's a great player. But I really think that Miami offensive line is the better side in that matchup. The other area where I see an advantage for Miami is the fact that this season they are 10th in the country in EPA per rush, EPA per rush allowed. So they are not allowing opposing teams to generate really any explosive plays running the football. They have been downhill. They've been stout. They've been rallying to the football. I've said that time and time again. We now have some numbers to really put context behind that. This Florida team, if DJ Lagway is having the problems that he's having, if Ball can't get going on the ground, it is going to be really, really rough sledding for them. They're going to have a really tough time.
Well, he had a tough time because it wasn't there for him. I mean, LSU, outside of the screens, Ball didn't do anything explosive.
And then the one play that was called back too with the silly penalty that they had.
Right. I mean, but that was a passing play. Mm-hmm. And to be real with you, it would have been called back the other way. They didn't even talk about the other flag. Joe, he's out of bounds for 50 yards. He literally runs out of bounds for 50 yards and then hops back in the field. Yeah, I mean, okay, whatever. I'm not going there. Regardless, you want to know how someone gets lost? They run down the sidelines. That's how they get lost. Regardless of that, the reason they couldn't get things going is because LSU just said, Joe, I talked about this on Thursday, but even going into it, they literally went man coverage and then went zone and said, we're going to confuse the shit out of you, and they kept popping him with it. They did nothing special. They ran 5 plays, Joe. Did LSU defensively? 5. They didn't. They were just showing him something and then backing out of it, and then Mansour DeLeone almost gets a pick. A.J. Halsey has the interception. Deshaun Spears baited him twice and picked it. This isn't I don't mean this. Look, LSU secondary made some elite plays, and I'm not saying they didn't because they 1,000% did. Joe, they took away the running game, and then when they had to go throw the ball for 40 times, he couldn't handle it. And he's a young quarterback. That shit like this is going to happen. Like you would have thought that he had a worse, you would have thought Arch Manning had a worse performance than DJ Lagway, and it's just clearly not the truth. But you get to a situation in a place where, Joe, I don't think they do that to him. They got to get him outside the pocket. They got to get him moving, but I don't think it's going to matter. What I would say for Florida, because, look, I still think that they have a chance here. You brought it up. They got to get ball downhill and go 3 yards in a cloud of dust and play time of possession and just get DJ on some couple of quick throws and then try to suck them up and then hit them deep. Pause. But you got to, because Billy continues to get in his own way. Joe, there were drives, and they keep getting in their own way. All of these touchdowns that they keep generating are getting called back for holdings. Billy runs the ball for 25 yards on 2 carries and then literally stops. I mean, like literally. I mean, the longest running play of the game you had, you didn't go back to it. I mean, you had a toss play that went for 9, and you didn't go back to it. One of the longest runs of the night. LSU clearly wasn't ready for it. Joe, this is where I see this game. Both teams have extreme talent on both lines of scrimmage. Florida is not as organized as Mario Cristobal and Miami. And I think this game, because it being a rivalry game, can be close early. But I think that Miami's just going to keep leaning on them and make them make mistakes. This is it, man. What do you think for Napier? I mean, this is it for me. Like, if you don't accomplish this week, it's over for me. The only thing I'd say is if DJ Lagway is the guy that we think that he is, he's going to respond and keep this one close.
And I think that's the kind of the key thing to talk about here. I've tried not to completely air out Lagway because I think he was thrown in the worst possible situation where you're throwing the ball way too much. When you're throwing too much, you're pressing. And when you're pressing, you're making mistakes. It happens to young quarterbacks all the time when their offense is struggling and they're playing up against good defenses. There is a path, knowing how physically talented this kid is, that he bounces back and he plays well. I don't think that automatically means that they win the game if he plays well. I think that where it is going to be really hard for Florida to win this game, Blake, is knowing the problems that were caused by LSU secondary last week. And he's now got to turn around and go up against the Miami secondary. This Miami secondary has been one of the best in the country. I keep hyping up Heatherman and how he has taken all 4 of those new dudes and he's activated them. They're all playing really well together. This is a serious, serious challenge, knowing what they already did to CJ Carr and the problems they caused for him at times. The problems that can now be caused for Lagway could make this an insurmountable obstacle for them to come out of this thing with a win. I just think that the odds are very, very thin, as they should be, knowing the trajectories that these two teams are on.
Joe, they have so much explosiveness, just Florida at wide receiver, and they're not utilizing it. I mean, listen, I want to talk more about Miami and not make this all about Florida. I think they're going to be able to run the ball late because they're going to tire out this defensive line and they're going to get pushed. Stay with the running game. Carson Beck's played this team a lot of times. I think Carson Beck, who, by the way, threw 3 interceptions in this game last year, wants some revenge, and I don't think those interceptions happen again. I just think that this is going to be close early. Both teams are going to run the ball. There's a lot of talent. It's a rivalry game. And I do think that Florida expands this. I mean, Miami expands this one late and really puts it on them. Again, the only thing I would say is Miami fans and to people around the country that will listen to this, I got to close look and personal look at this Florida team this weekend. Joe, I don't care what you tell me. They got talent all over the place. That's the crazy thing about this, is this coaching staff has done such a disservice for the amount of talent that they have. Carmani McClain was a walk-on. Remember the whole Carmani McClain?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Joe, Carmani McClain can play.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Dude, this kid can fly. He ran down Caden Durham. I mean, I'm not trying to make it bigger than what he ran him down. They got, that's the thing with Billy that drives me crazy. Joe, they might have 3 first-round picks on their defense.
It's crazy that they couldn't. The whole way that we'd be talking about this team would be so different if they'd just beaten South Florida. Even if it was a close win that they had, it would have been fine.
They beat South Florida. Hey, look, you're winning a Baton Rouge against what might be the best defense in the country, and you couldn't overcome it.
Yeah. Our perspective on them would be completely different, but instead it feels inevitable that Miami covers that 7.5 point spread on FanDuel. Like that's what this feels like.
Let me say this. That was Lagway's first start on the road, by the way.
That is forgotten.
So Baton Rouge, Death Valley, Charles Alexander's number being retired at halftime, arguably the best running back in LSU history, not named Leonard Fournette or Kevin Falk. And he wasn't coming in there and winning. And it's a completely different atmosphere. You're the one that they usually yell out for atmosphere. Miami and Hard Rock ain't Baton Rouge on a Saturday night. It just isn't. I mean,
I'll let Miami fans get mad.
Oh, let them. I will go. Hey, listen.
I think that everyone's got to understand that Baton Rouge with 100,000 people is not the same thing as
please clip it. I will fight all day long against these Rudy Poos tomorrow if it comes to it. I don't care. Don't you dare. Come on. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on here. Joe, we finally get to talk about the 2 best teams in the Big 12 here. Texas Tech, the Red Raiders, my Big 12 champions here against your very close Big 12 champions, the Utah Utes.
All right, I didn't pick Utah as my champion. I picked Texas Tech.
You picked Texas Tech.
Nice try.
Okay. Regardless. Utah versus Texas Tech this weekend, a massive showdown in the Big 12. Who are you taking?
Blake, I got to be honest, this game at the very current moment, I do not have a link.
Me either.
On FanDuel, -3.5 for Utah. Utah is the home team. We know that this is a home environment that is incredibly complicated to find success in. It's very hard. It's very, very hard. So that needs to be a part of our conversation. Blake, I think that Utah has looked incredibly dominant, and they have lived up to, for the first 3 games, to the expectation of what we thought that they could excel in. Their offensive line is 2 premier players in Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu. They're running the ball really well, and Devin Dampier has added another layer to this offense that they needed. They look more explosive. Their defense has been absolutely phenomenal to this point. I'll provide some more context later. But Texas Tech on the other side of things, man, I know that they've gotten some hype throughout the years, over the past couple of years since NIL has become more prevalent. They've got athletes all over that defense and on their defensive line. Their offensive line has been one of the best in the country. And most importantly, Behren Morton has been extremely underrated to this point for how he is looking. I think that both of these squads are on a collision course for an eventual rematch in the Big 12 championship game. But I really love what I've seen from both these teams. I do admittedly lean a little bit in favor of Texas Tech.
Texas Tech is the team that I've been waiting to get in a game with some prime time. Because, look, I think the Utah game, we got to see them early in the year, and Dampier, that offensive line leaning on people. We've got to kind of see them more on a national stage. But last week, we got to see Texas Tech, even in a rain delay or weather delay, they're in the primetime spot. You're getting a look at them. You're getting a real good look at them for the first time, and they flat out dominated Oregon State. I get that it's Oregon State. Joe, the amount of explosiveness that they have on offense is absolutely insane. Jacoby Williams had 7 catches for 116 yards as a running back. They are as explosive a Big 12 team as I've ever seen. And I mean that. Even with Texas and Oklahoma when they both used to be in there. They got so much depth of explosiveness. You start taking away some of these guys on the perimeter, you start taking away Coy Aiken, then you have a problem with Terrence Carter in the middle from the UL transfer. You start taking away the run game. Well, they're going to throw some screens on the outside and go speed on you. And Joe, they don't care. They will go 5 yards per screen on you. They don't care. I think their quarterback is playing very well. The amount of explosiveness and what they've done up front has been something that, look, they went in the portal and spent a lot of money. But until you get to see Texas Tech up close and personal, it's not really what you would have imagined. This is a completely different team. I got to be real with you. Even though the offense has done some of the things, the big plays, the splash plays, it's gotten all the talk because that's what you think when you think Texas Tech. This defense, hello. I mean, Joe, they got dudes all over the place. But this game, when we look at it, is against two different styles of opponents. One team that wants to run the football effectively, and they want to play some time of possession and good defense. And I still think that they're doing that with Dampier. Now, he's got to be a little bit more accurate. Last week, Dampier went 27 of 41. And I thought the inaccuracies against Wyoming were a little alarming for me based off of some of the things that we saw from him a season ago. Let me give an example of something and stay with me here. We all wonder what Joey Aguilar was going to look like at Tennessee. We kind of got an idea of what he may or may not do. Dampier yet has shown me that he has taken the next step as of right now. This will show it to us because I think Texas Tech can really get after him. The question I have in this game is, can this Utah defense stop the explosive plays versus can Texas Tech contain Dampier? That is my ultimate questions here.
So this is where statistically why this game is going to be really intriguing because as I talked about, Texas Tech 13th in the country in havoc rate allowed. So they're doing a really good job, especially in pass protection of protecting Morton. Also to this point, they are 6th in the country in EPA per dropback. So they are getting, as you talked about, they're getting a lot of explosive pass plays through the air. But Utah has been incredibly stingy defensively. They're first in adjusted EPA per play on defense. They're 3rd in EPA per dropback on defense. They are incredibly hard to move the ball at the rate that Texas Tech has found success at. They are very, very great. And just we know historically, Kyle Whittingham has been a coach who has emphasized rallying to the ball, not allowing guys to break tackles, funneling everything, and not allowing for anybody to break free. This is where and why I don't have like a direct pick. I lean Texas Tech because I think that the athleticism in every single position group is just so ridiculous. There's not a huge separation between them and Utah, but I think that there's just a slight enough edge that Texas Tech could win this game and pull it out on the road. But where this game gets hard to predict is that they both excel in opposite areas.
Yes.
There's not really a pivot point where I can say, well, this is where said team ends up escaping. I think that because Utah is so good at not allowing teams to be explosive, and we've got Texas Tech being so explosive, it makes it really hard to really project what's going to happen. I know I'm not really providing much of a prediction there.
No, but you get to a point where the question starts becoming in a game like this, when you look at Utah, historically speaking, if you execute at a high level, the style that Utah tries to pull off normally wins because you control the game. And when you can control things, you can control the controllables, as coaches speak, normally works. But the question will be there, can Texas Tech and Joey McGuire's staff find a way to get off the field on critical third downs? Can they? Because if you can't convert on third down, Dampier can't make the throws that he needs to make, and he's inaccurate like he was last week. 27 of 41. I mean, you go and look at, there are some bad throws in there, some very bad throws. And the question that I ask here is, if you do that to Texas Tech and you keep giving an explosive offense time and reps and explosiveness, they're going to keep hitting things on you. Terrence Carter might be the biggest slept-on tight end in the country. Legitimately. I mean, like, this kid is absolutely fantastic. I just start asking questions in reference to, I think that whoever wins third down from Texas Tech's defense to Utah's offense, as crazy as this sounds, is going to win this one. Because if they can continue to keep the time of possession and keep the football, they can't contain Dampier, then it's all going to be all she wrote. Because this offensive line can get push on anybody.
That is the part of the reason, too, why I have hesitation for committing to Texas Tech and wanting to pick them to win this. I think that having Texas Tech's offensive line has been stellar, and it has played well. But there's a little bit of a difference between their offensive line and Utah's, because Utah's offensive line has two guys that are likely to go in the first round of this draft or the next draft.
They'll maul you.
Yeah. They haven't had a singular running back that's put up a crazy total, but they've relied on different bodies to run the ball. They've used Dampier. They've turned to different running backs. They're deep there, which is something that held them back last year, is that they didn't have a lot of depth, and they also didn't have the running aspect from whoever was playing quarterback with them. I think that is where I ultimately have the most hesitation, is if this is a close battle, which it will be, does Utah's ability to control the line of scrimmage, run the ball, play the game the way that they need to, is that how they just win the game? And the thing that I opened this segment with, it's in Utah. The game's in Utah. No matter how good you play, it's really easy to get sucked into the void that is that stadium. I'm a little fearful of projecting Texas Tech to win because it's such a hard place to win on the road.
Well, and listen, Texas Tech has not been tested. And I'm not saying that Utah has, but Utah's at home. You got to go out there and try to find a way to make a statement. Now, Morton had a bad interception last week. Bad one. I mean, old school, off the back foot, throwing it up for grabs. You going to Utah and do that? Buddy.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You can't do that.
Wait, one thing I would say, by the way, I think that for what these two teams, the teams that they've each played, I think that Oregon State's comparable to UCLA. I think that they're about the same team. Oregon State and
Oregon
UCLA
State's
are about
far
the same.
better. They got far better athletes defensively.
Oh, so then you would agree. So then you think that Texas Tech's been more tested than UCLA has been?
Yes.
Than Utah has been.
But the thing is with the UCLA thing, when I talk about tested, I don't ever really think a team is truly tested until that first road game. Like, let me give an example. Ole Miss last year is undefeated the entire first 6-7 weeks of the season. Joe, they start going on the road and getting their asses whooped. They go to Florida and they get their ass whooped. They got Kentucky. I know that's at home. They got their asses whooped on the last play, couldn't do anything. Their big win versus Georgia's at home. Every time that these teams, Alabama, keep going on the road, they don't have success. When you got a lot of player turnover and you start going on the road, I don't really care. Spare me the home stuff. Spare me. I mean, Joe, like we talked about this a little bit kind of with Notre Dame. Name a team more tested than the University of Notre Dame right now. Name one.
No one.
Because they faced off against two top 10 teams. I mean, I gave you shit yesterday saying they shouldn't have been ranked. So what? They lost to two top 10 teams. So you got so. Hey, what happens when that place gets absolutely chaotic and the Mormon juice starts flowing and you can't hear?
Okay, Utah, again, for the 100th time, University of Utah is not just Mormons. It's not BYU. It's not BYU. We got to reframe that. It's a big state.
Okay, I got you. But you get what I'm saying?
You're right. It is a hard place to perform.
Joe, we've seen better teams, with all due respect, we've seen better teams go into there at night and not be be far more athletic than Utah and get their asses whooped.
Mm-hmm. It happened to Florida multiple times.
We saw Oregon do it.
Yeah.
How many times did that Oregon team have first-round picks and you're just like, what is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what was the quarterback name for the Chargers?
Justin Herbert.
I mean, look like I'm not gonna say it. All right. Let's move on here. Joe, last game here, Auburn, Oklahoma. The return of Jackson Arnold versus his old team. Both teams going into this one undefeated. When you look at this SEC matchup, what are your thoughts?
Oklahoma favored at -6.5 on FanDuel. That was surprising to see. Blake, look, Oklahoma has transformed themselves. They have. They are first this season in EPA per dropback allowed on defense. Their pass rush has been overwhelming. Their passing attack has been incredibly explosive. John Napier has found ways to help this team succeed despite some offensive line issues and some run game issues. But Blake, I got to be honest with you. I'm leaning towards Auburn winning this game. I understand. And look, I know that we got it wrong when they played Michigan. I think that this is very different. Auburn has 11 sacks and 26 tackles for loss through 3 games. Want me to read that one more time? 11 sacks, 26 tackles for loss through 3 games. You have Falk, you have Crawford, who are both incredibly talented defenders. And their run game has been one of the best in college football to this point. 4th in EPA per rush, running the football. You've got Cobb and you've got Jackson Arnold working together in tremendous tandem with a layer to connect with Coleman and Singleton in the pass game. So, Blake, I think that this is a completely different challenge than the Michigan game. I think that we misfired on predicting the Michigan game. But I don't think we're misfiring here if we think that Auburn's going to pull this thing out.
The return of Jackson Arnold, what a story this would be if he's able to beat the old team that he just left and you bring in John Napier and Arbuckle to change things. The question that I have is I don't know if John Napier, and he very well can, I don't know if John Napier is going to – let me rephrase the question like this. Is John Napier going to be able to find the magic every week? Because if he finds the magic every week, then you have a bona fide Heisman contender. You have a bona fide situation where, Joe, it doesn't matter. They're going to be in every game whether you like it or not. And despite some offensive line issues, he is the catalyst for what we've seen with them. Let's be real about something. I know that they are the number 1 team in EPA per dropback defensively. Name a team that's worth a damn that could throw the football that they've played. Name one. Because you could say, well, Michigan and Bryce Underwood, but they literally, all Michigan fans keep saying is, we don't have the receivers. We don't have the receivers. We are not explosive. Sounds good. I am looking at this Auburn game and say, well, Cam Coleman can play. Eric Singleton can play. What can Auburn and Jackson Arnold do to prevent that? What do they present that gives Oklahoma more issues than what maybe Michigan could provide? I look at Oklahoma's offensive line, and say to myself, I saw Temple get a lot of pressure on John Napier. And yes, the box score says that you ran for a lot of yards. But if you're just going to sit there and box score watch and not come to the realization that he was under a lot of pressure, then you're fooling yourself here. Can he continue to show that magic every week? If he does, then, Joe, I think they're going to win the game. The question is, if that offensive line continues to do some of the things that they have been doing, I don't think Michigan was the team to test you. There were a lot of times that Oklahoma gave Michigan chance after chance after chance after chance to go and tie and win that game, and they just couldn't do it. I don't know if you do that to Auburn, that you're going to be given the ability to right that wrong. This one's really close for me. And the thing that keeps rattling around in my brain is, does the head coach that knows the quarterback win, or is the quarterback that knows the head coach win?
Mm-hmm.
And question. That's where I sit here and say I don't know where to lean. I really am up in the air, but I don't think that this Oklahoma team has been tested the way that Auburn will test them, even with Michigan.
Well, now, so there's two things that you just brought up a really interesting point, and I think to answer your question, I would lean Venables because Venables is such a wily defensive coach. He's now calling the defensive plays. There's a chance for him to understand the little intricacies that didn't work with Jackson Arnold that could really cause problems for him.
Yeah.
Arnold's been great so far, but here's the thing that with Arnold, he's barely thrown the ball.
Yeah.
They have gone all in on running the football. So there's really not going to be a ton of opportunities if they continue to find success running the ball in this game to lead him into turning the ball over. He hasn't had turnovers because, again, they're not throwing the ball. They took the ball out of his hands, and it has made him a more natural player in a good way. They took out a ball out of his hands and just told him to impact the game in his way. 6 of those
passes last week are pop passes to Eric Singleton.
Right. The other part that comes with this, though, on the flip side, is that, Blake, I just have a lot of pause seeing, and it's not effectively appreciated enough how they played against Baylor, who's a really good team. I really think that Auburn showed an ability for them to physically establish themselves on both lines of scrimmage. And that we've gotten games wrong in predicting them this year. The ones we've gotten correct are the ones that we've leaned into physicality and the teams that have an edge on both lines. Auburn has the better D-line. They have the better O-line in this game. You have had a really improved pass rush. Mason Thomas, I love him. He is a fantastic player. But the Auburn defensive line has been more productive than yours to this point. The Auburn offensive line is miles better than the Oklahoma one is to this point. I have to lean into that core tenet because it has been a success driver in every single game that we've predicted in the last 3 years.
John Napier has 3 interceptions, by the way, in this first 3 weeks. And the interception last week versus Temple, people will say, well, that's interception's not really on him. The ball got stripped. He made a bad throw and his receiver got hurt, and it was a hospital ball, and the ball got ripped out. And Joe, when you start getting into conference play, especially in the SEC or Big Ten, and you start turning the ball over, it doesn't matter what team you're playing. I do agree. This offensive line for Oklahoma would scare me. It continues to scare me. I thought Michigan still did a lot of really good things being out there as much as they were. And look, John Napier is a baller, man. Like he is an overall just football dude. And I think he's going to keep them in every single game that they play this year. Can he keep up with the magic and make some of these magical plays that he's been making? I don't think his offensive line does him a lot of favors. Where is Jay Knott, by the way?
Well, they did get a good game out of Blaylock, by the way. They did get.
I mean, fine. I mean, he was hitting the edge a lot against Temple, but man, this isn't Temple. This isn't Temple. So, Joe, both of them probably are running with the quarterback a little bit more than they want to, especially Oklahoma. So, can this Oklahoma O-line hold up, man?
That's literally if they don't, they lose the game. If they play better and Napier gets the ball out quick,
then they're going to win.
They win. I see
that they're a borderline playoff team if they can do that because Napier's been that good.
So that's a really good way of putting this before we close out. Oklahoma wins this game. Their offensive line plays better against the most productive defensive line to this point. That is enough proof for me that Oklahoma is getting to the playoff. And that would be enough proof for me that Napier is in the Heisman conversation. Both things will be proved.
I'm not going to go there yet because I don't think that Auburn's the team. Let me look at Oklahoma's schedule right quick.
Well, I know I'm not like characterizing this as them beating Georgia, but I'm saying that this is an early in-conference challenge, and if you overcome this, it provides momentum for you to be more confident throughout the season.
Yeah, because they still have Texas. They got to go on the road to South Carolina during October. They got Ole Miss in Knoxville. Joe, they got to go to Tennessee after what we just saw. Then they turn around in 2 weeks and go to Bama. Then they got Missouri and then LSU.
It's a tough schedule, dude.
Ooh,
Tough schedule.
You better turn it up now. You better get this one, baby. That's all that I know. All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Y'all have a blessed night. Peace.